I'd like to welcome everyone to the Madison County Board of Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session, May 3rd, 2021, at 6:03 p.m. As everyone knows, tonight's meeting is a very informal meeting. It's a time for us to go over the topics before us, gives us a little time to discuss them before we make a vote. I'll start off with the chairman's report. We had to change this a little bit because of the weather we had today. And speaking with Mr. Bobby Smith, who is our EMA director and also EMS director, we had 2 tornadoes come through Madison County today. One was on Christmas Circle and one was on Strickland Circle. 2 houses were damaged. There was no injuries. Actually, I think there was 3 houses, wasn't there? Mm-hmm. About 3. And we were out on the roads all day. I would like to first off say thank you to the Sheriff's Department, Code Enforcement, EMS, Fire Rescue, and everyone. I rode the roads also this afternoon, picking out hot spots. Derek and the Sheriff's Office done a good job. Highway 29 was shut down for a short period of time, but they had sheriff on both sides directing, keeping everybody safe. It was really bad weather while they were all working out there, but as of about 5:30, I got a call from Derek, and he said all roadways were clear. I also talked to Michael Williams, the school superintendent, and let him know of the areas, because it was about the time the school was going to be letting out, and he really appreciated that part. But it was a very well communicated ordeal today, and I want to thank all y'all for it. Now, moving on. This room now has an AED in the back of it, thanks to Mr. Bobby Smith. We had an AED down front, but we felt like because of the gathering up here, we needed to keep one here. Is there anybody here that don't know what an AED is? I think we all do. Okay. All right, moving on. So earlier this week, I had a meeting. Let me get my paperwork straight here. All right. I had a meeting with Dan Horn, our attorney, Mr. Mike Pruitt, and Bob Seville. After the meeting, we discussed many topics, and this affected our property and casualty insurance, and the current lady we have now is Nancy, I can't pronounce that last name. Corals. To entertain possibly doing a change of broker. There's several reasons for this. Nancy Coyle works for One Beacon. Am I correct with that? Just One Beacon?
Well, she works for Public Entities of America, which is owned by One Beacon. Same difference, yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Bob Seville, I think she actually worked for Bob at one time.
Right.
Because he's not under that One Beacon blanket, he can bring us more opportunities to shop for better insurance purposes. He feels that there is some room out there that we can probably lower our costs, but yet better our service and our coverages. By having those different plans, we're not nailed to just one participating insurance company. So with that being said, and feel free to ask, Mike knows a little bit more about this than I do, but Dan Horn, who has our insurance now, or different type of insurance, but he does carry our liability for property also, right?
Property and casualty.
Yeah. He recommended Bob Seville to take this over for us. It will be sometime in the near future, I have no idea, but if Nancy was to retire, I don't know the avenues that we would have. But I feel like with Bob, and after having the meeting and hearing some of the savings that we'll be able to incur, that it would be a good move to move our broker of record to Mr. Bob Seville. This I would need a vote on, but if there's any questions, myself or Michael Schott will be able to answer them for y'all.
Is it, you want to vote on that tonight?
Yes, sir.
Is
Well, yeah, when we were trying to, you need a vote on it tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and change the agent of record. It doesn't affect the county's policy or premium this year. And it may or may not, I mean, Bob's a One Beacon, he can deal with One Beacon as well as other companies, and he might place it back with One Beacon this year, but it sets you up to start getting some competition between different insurance companies, and maybe if not in a couple of months, then down the road, reap some savings.
What we're voting on is to change the agent of record.
Yes, sir, that's
Correct.
right.
That's what we're voting.
Is there any, I won't say provision, does that fall under like a professional services agreement? I mean, any reason that, do we have to do any public announcement, RFP type, I mean, is there any required legalities that we have to?
There's not, and actually, so Dan really is, he's our agent for all our property and casualty, everything except workers' comp. But for certain types of coverages, insurance companies won't sell it through an agent directly. They require you go through a broker in the middle that specializes in public entities. So the one it's with now is PEA, and the one we're changing it to is Seville and Associates, Bob Seville and his company. But, no, we never shopped for it in the first place. It came through Dan.
So I'll ask a motion to approve or deny to swap, the broker of record from, I don't even know the name of the company. Oh, PEA. Well,
Yeah, PEA, that's
yeah,
right.
PEA,
From PEA to Seville and Company.
that's correct.
This is a no-cost associated change,
That's right.
Correct.
so moved.
Second motion.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion? Denny?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, the next one, Terry, I'll let you help me on just a little bit. This is regarding the Madison County Agricultural Education Center. And what we're wanting to do is change, the Department of Community Affairs and One Georgia is de-obligating the grant from the Board of Commissioners to award it to the Madison County Industrial Authority. So in other words, we won't be facilitating this grant, the IDA will be facilitating this grant. But originally, the paperwork was started under the Board of Commissioners. So I guess what I'm asking you for is a vote to turn this over to the Industrial Authority.
That probably is the best wording, is just the county would no longer be the facilitator. The Madison County Ag Center Incorporated was awarded this grant. It's from One Georgia Authority that is administered by the Department of Community Affairs. And we found out that they're a little challenging to work with at times. There's a lot of things we didn't know. We thought we had everything lined up November, December of last year. And then all of a sudden we got, oh, by the way, we can't do it like this. We had to go through different steps. Make a long story short, and thanks to Mr. Pruitt for helping us out through this and discussing it with their attorneys. Their recommendation for us was that the funds awarded in the grant be dedicated to FFEs, furniture, fixture, and equipment, and be handled through the Industrial Development Authority. It has to go through a branch of government. So it could be the Board of Education, could be Madison County Board of Commissioners, could be Industrial Development Authority. Their recommendation for us, just because of ease of handling, less strings, less hoops, to go through the Industrial Development Authority, so they would become the bank account that it goes through to go to the Madison County Ag Center Incorporated. So it's just a matter of, the paperwork was already done, the contracts were already signed for it to go through the county. So the county has to go through the formality of relinquishing those funds for them to be directed through the IDA. The purpose does not change.
So, I guess the IDA has been
Yes,
involved.
that is correct. They've been on board with that. In fact, it was through them that we got Mike involved to make sure that everything was done.
We also could close the county's bank account, which we have open
That is
now
correct.
for that. That'll close.
So I'll be glad to answer, I will not vote on this, obviously, but be glad to answer any questions.
Do just one thing I didn't know. I think the county entered into the contract with John Phillips, the engineer. Does the board need to vote to transfer that to the IDA too?
I don't think we.
Or did we not do
I
that
don't
yet?
think we got that far.
Okay,
I'm sure that on our end, we did not.
gotcha, okay.
As the IDA, we voted to hire John Phillips, but I don't think from a county standpoint.
Oh, okay, all right. I remembered he was involved somehow.
Yeah.
So what, you need a motion?
Yes, sir, I need a motion to approve to swap from the Madison County Board of Commissioners to the Madison County Industrial Development Authority.
Okay, you got the motion?
To deobligate.
Deobligate, yes. All right, I have a motion by Mr. Kirk. Have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? Hearing none?
Yes.
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 It's unanimous, thank you. Now we'll go back into the chairman's report. So, I think everybody got a copy of the 2021 budget for March. I've looked over those, sit down with Kathy this morning. Madison County is doing very well for this year. We have, right now, we're probably ahead of target. If nothing changes, I know a lot of the big items, big line items has already been purchased, and we're still looking very well for this year. But if you have any questions, you should have an email that has a line-by-line summary for March up till March 31st. Quick note, I received this before I came out today, and we're gonna forward this to y'all also, and it is gonna be the closeout of April 30th from the permit office. They have issued just this year 223 building permits as of May 1st, has went through that office. Road Department, we're looking to purchase,
Excuse me, Mr. Officer, I saw that, I got that email. I just-
oh, okay.
What is the stops? We're talking about stops with that.
That's the property, inspector will stop at a property and maybe do.
Oh, how many times, yeah. It could be everything from a stop work order, he gets a call, somebody's building something, ain't supposed to be no permits, or it could be just that, he went out to look at a piece of property that may have been called in for some reason.
All of these, there's more inspections than there are stops, so you may go to a stop and do multiple inspections.
That's right.
Just want to make sure I understood what the report was.
Yeah, I'm just giving you the high notes of how many permits was pulled. The road departments, we're gonna be looking to purchase another dump truck in the near future. This will also be coming out of that splosh fund from 2014. We're gonna need a new, I ain't gonna say a new, but potentially used, well, nice mounted truck. It's been well kept up, whether it be a tandem axle, and then looking at a single axle type of, we call it just a brush type truck. Something small, 10-foot bed, that'll follow along with our ditch machine. The sheriff's office has also reached out to me in purchasing a mower, and this is a small tractor, almost identical to the one we got for the rec department, the Bobcat brand, with a small finishing mower. And turns out, after going and seeing their need and talking with Alan and Derek, it would be wise for us to do that. Currently, they're cutting around the EMS station, the sheriff's office over there with a couple zero turns. It's just too big of a piece of property to be cutting with a regular lawnmower. I think they're probably cutting about 7 acres total right in there with a zero turn, just to be easier with a tractor. And I told them we could probably work this the same way with the splosh funds from 2014, but the tractor would belong to the road department. They'll just be using it for finishing more stuff. But this is just stuff to think about, that's all this is. Commissioner Dalton has a new hire in his office, just wanted to bring y'all up to speed. The other young lady has graduated cosmetology school and will be moving on. We have found a replacement as of right now for the building maintenance, which will be assistant TC. You know, TC moved up after Mr. Geiger left, after he retired. And we hope to have him now, because TC's been a one-man show ever since David retired. In the coming weeks, we'll be purchasing 2 new gate motors, one for the gate on the back of this courthouse, which has the judge's parking lot, and one for the gate at the 911 center. Cost on those gates is about $4,700. Neither one of them works when it rains. They've been working on them, and they've been patching them together for about 7 years. I think this one here's like 20 years old, and the parts has become obsolete. I did tell them to go ahead and move forward with that. Renovations are underway on the Board of Election office down here. A lot of the old framing, the joint framing between rooms has been torn out. Y'all know the carpet's been removed. I did receive a price over the weekend. I met a gentleman up here Saturday, went through the buildings to re-level the floor. It's gonna be about 70 bags of leveler just in 2 rooms. And then, he's bringing in a machine to cut that glue off and then start moving tile back. They're currently, getting the materials together to put an ADA acceptable bathroom also down there. But that is the progress as it stands of right now. The paint has been purchased, for that building. It just has not been applied until they get that glue up. I don't want to tear the walls up.
Feel comfortable with the water quality inside?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We put some drainage around the outside of the building to catch it. That was on one side. The other side of the building was just more of a settling problem that they had done, so we had to do a little work to keep that from happening anymore, but that part's being complete too. But again, all this is just updates for you guys and girls.
You wanna talk about the dog park?
Yeah, oh, that's another one that we got added to right out the gate, or right at the very end of the day. So, Madison County, or MOAS, is asking for permission to seek a grant, and he sent me the link on it earlier, and it looks like there's a $25,000 grant that's available, if awarded, for a dog park at our current MOAS station. I went into detail with him to ask him, okay, once it's built, what is the ongoing,
Thank you.
yeah, services is gonna be provided there as far as cost. There is none. It's basically a fenced-in lot, possibly a covered shelter with some exercise stuff for the dogs to get them outside. But it is open to the public. It's not just for employees. It's an open to the public dog park. He said it will resemble the one Oconee County just built because they were awarded the last grant. He feels comfortable because Madison County serves Oglethorpe and Madison that we'll have a leg up because we're furnishing 2 counties with the same park. And, he needed permission to move forward. I don't know that we actually need a vote on it. Yeah, exactly, and it's 100% grant, it's no matching funds, we've already cleared all that up, so,
We talked to Dan Horn.
yeah,
Yeah, it's already, that's on county property anyway, isn't it?
it is. But there's no power bills, no extensions of powers, all the water's already out there anyway for the outside dogs, so it's just more or less an extension of services which will be covered under that grant.
Have they looked at any of the utilities that are out there, like the gas, the pipeline, all the stuff that may have a right of access to it that would prevent us from doing anything? And then how big is the dog park that they're, I mean, I'm glad they want to go to the grant, but I'm just curious of what their vision is on
So
how big.
he don't know the exact size of it. He has to get with Oconee County, but from our talking today, they can shift it anywhere around that location. If there was a underlying, power or underlying gas line, that it could be moved, very reasonably. So I don't think he was stuck to a precise location that we didn't know anything about. But no, he's really just waiting to see if they even get the grant. He don't wanna put too much in it, not get it. But I did tell him of all the things that would have to take place before they could move forward with construction. Oh, all right. That's all I have on that. I know y'all glad of that. Hearing and zoning matters, I'm not aware of any. Old business. Consider proposed EMS pension plan. We talked about this about a month ago, and I know Derek had a few questions on it, so I've asked Bobby Smith to come in. Bobby, you wanna come up just in case they have some questions for you?
How are y'all tonight?
Good.
Morning, how are you doing?
Did everybody get the paperwork that, what's his name?
Greg Easy.
Greg, brought by? Everybody got it?
So originally, we had talked about whether to do a 20-year plan or 25-year plan. After speaking with all the employees, you felt the 20-year plan was gonna be
Yeah,
the
and
best.
it makes the most sense for management too, because that allows me to recruit older people, with more experience. So basically, your 35-year-old that's already been a medic for 20 years or whatever, allows me to kind of make him wanna come here. And still he'll have, you know, his 20 years, 55, and he can leave. Which, I mean, according to Greg, that's not necessarily the case all the time anyway. You know, they can continue to work and all that and still gain and increase their retirement just by, you know, getting pay raises and all that. So, just if, you know, their body's not holding up to picking up big people, it allows them a pathway to actually make their retirement.
That was one of the biggest misconceptions we had among Sheriff's Department, EMS, and everybody else was retirement age. Everybody's like, well, you know, I'm maxed out, I've been here 30 years, I might as well leave. And Greg Geesey says, no, that's not why you leave. You stay because of those 2 or 3% raises that comes because once your retirement's based off your last 3 years of salary, so if you stay 10 years over, whatever you gained is what your retirement's based off of. Well, we did have one in the sheriff's office, I think, with 34 years or something like that, and he was already planning out where he was gonna work next. And after getting off the phone with him, he says, well, good, I'll just stay here. It makes no sense for me to go anywhere else. So it was a good conversation on that one. Now, I think Derek's question was, at what cost to the county would we incur?
So none. That's according to Greg Geeks, that's the great thing about it is it's employee funded. So EMS employees would basically pay 4%. And that number could go up for us, depending on if we went through a slew of, people retiring or whatever, or actually, taking it early or whatever. It could go up more than 4%, but it'd still be covered by the employees. So the actual cost of the county, according to Greg, is nothing. So it's really a no-brainer. I mean,
I suppose you've talked to a lot of employees, so they feel good about this?
They do, and really and truly, Jackson County has the exact same plan. Now, Jackson's got some more perks that we're not gonna be able to afford, like they are allowed to keep their insurance, and once they retire up to 65, we're not gonna do that, we can't afford that. So, yeah, I mean, this is not the first time it's been done like this. Jackson's doing the same thing, and have for forever, so, I mean, it's, like I said, it's really, no-brainer, because it doesn't cost the county anything. It just allows public safety to be able to retire at a normal age, where you're not you're not 65 trying to still work on an ambulance and pick up people and take care of people, and it doesn't happen. We don't have guys and girls at that level.
So this is just mainly setting it up so that you get whatever state and government law advantages, tax advantages, or whatever that is. I mean, you're setting it up as some kind of pension fund that's gonna meet whatever, all the requirements of the IRS or whatever. So
He didn't say anything about that as far as it affecting IRS or any of that. I don't remember him ever saying.
You'll still have to meet all the obligations of being qualified at a
Right.
certain age to draw.
Yeah.
That's another big misconception. Everybody says, well, I got my 20 years in, I can retire. And Greg says, the difference between able and can afford to
Right.
is a different
Yeah,
thing.
because obviously, it's more so about, at 55, we start looking at, that's almost the end of their career, just to be honest. I mean, you're getting up, working 24 hours, getting up all night, picking up very large patients, and, so it's, with public safety, a lot of fire departments already do it, at 55, your body and mind sometimes just.
Easy.
I'm just telling you what my guys say. So.
Maybe I should have been an EMS guy instead of a plumber.
Well, I mean, the state fireman's pension fund, when you get 55, you qualify. If you got 20 years at 55, you can draw the max.
Right, and that the reason I think the reason they done that's kind of the same reason. Your body just doesn't hold up to firefighting, much after the age of 55.
And there was one more topic on this, is somebody had asked me, why did we look at the sheriff's office? Well, the sheriff's office already has a pension fund, a lot like the fire departments, that they're able to get it. EMS was the only group of emergency services that never had any way to retire, other than just work your full term.
Right. Yeah.
where everybody else got good lobbyists at the county.
Right, we
Y'all
don't
didn't
have,
get one.
you know, we're the new guys on the block as far as, career pathways, so we still haven't got our pension yet, so hopefully they'll get it done one day, but I don't see it.
I'm all for it, I just make sure that, and I suppose this, the guy that we talked to, I mean, that, you know, we're not set up, that we're setting ourselves up, and if Jackson County's not had any issues.
Greg says that, I mean, basically, I mean, like I said, Todd, we all met with him, Jimmy with the sheriff's office, I think was in there, and Alan and somebody else, but according to Greg, I mean, it's a straight 4% employee contribution, and that'll take care of it. That'll.
And so they, but I mean, they put it in there, it's tax-free when they put it in there?
It's pre-taxed.
Yeah, it's pre-tax, so it's gotta meet some federal guidelines.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. So all that, he knows all that.
Yeah, he set up all that side of it. He basically just brought us back our worksheets with our prices, what it, you know, like the price breakdown, and basically showing that it's not gonna cost the
Okay.
county any money, and it basically will eventually, it'll pay for itself.
And just for my ignorant knowledge, now who's he with? Is he?
ACCG,
Is he?
yeah,
He does our county pension.
Okay,
yeah.
so we're good.
Mhm.
So on these line items, here we got, there's two of them, required contribution, required employer contribution. And it gives us a figure there, and then recommended employer contribution, it gives us another one, so, but you're telling us, I mean, what are those line items?
So that's what we're paying already, that 12.6%.
So we're already doing
Yes,
this?
sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that.
So we're talking about no additional dollars?
Right. That's already being paid by the county towards everybody's pension. So it basically, it allows EMS, we will basically pay for our own assurance, is essentially what the plan that he worked out.
So this takes the percentage that the county is already contributing and enhances it so that your employees would be eligible at 20 years.
Right. And it, basically what it does is it adds another 4% of the cost that it does incur is basically 4% out of the 20 employees. It's covered by basically EMS employees covering their 4% cost.
And as we exist now, with the program that the county is currently contributing to, your employees have to be 30 years to be eligible.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so this just allows them, with the contribution, to
30.
take what we're already doing and bring that down to 20 years.
Right, 30 and 65, so,
Gotcha.
Sixty,
without being penalized at 65.
county pension. The county,
Yeah, but you still get penalized if you take it earlier, right?
not at sixty. If you leave, you get it at sixty, I know. I'll be on that.
So if you've got an employee that's making 30, and these are just numbers, 35,000 a year, he's gonna contribute $1,400 in pre-tax money to the program. He works 25 or 30 years, he'll basically, in a private account, he'll have $42,000.
Well, it actually goes into, it'll go to ACCG and the county's pension. It gets paid into that from the.
This is a defined benefit plan, it's a true pension. So,
Okay, so it is true.
so ACCG has to, well, I guess the county's ultimately responsible for making sure the pension's solvent, but ACCG's advising that this extra 4%, it'll still be solvent with the early retirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
That buys all the current employees in, so if I'm 19 years now, then I got one.
Yep.
I
According to
start
Greg,
contributing today, then.
And everybody's required to,
everybody's required to put their 4% in, and I mean,
And I'll be
for us,
honest with you,
that's-
that was the kicker.
right.
We did not know it was retroactive. When he called us back and says, if you got a 15-year guy, he's only got 5 years to go, and that's how you gonna pay for that. He said, all those new ones that come in, he said, it's just a revolving circle. But to know that somebody like, well, you got some,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's, you know, we
18, 19 years in.
So if you
I
have
don't wanna
some,
say employee names up here, but I know of two that tried to make it, tried to make it for their retirement, and just physically couldn't work it out. And one was having some heart issues and just couldn't make it, just couldn't do it.
so the employee that joins your staff and then doesn't go fully to retirement, he just relinquishes those contributions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you don't stay the full 5 years, you're not vested anyway.
So like a new employee, and he stayed, works with you 10.
Yeah, I mean, he would get 10 years worth of benefits, but just like they would now, you know, I mean, but it's not gonna be their full pension.
Okay, so they do get their portion of it.
Yeah, they'll get a portion of it, just like anybody else. If you know, you start with the county and you reach your 5-year mark, you're vested.
There's a vesting period. to
Yeah,
that.
it's a percentage per year. It just, basically with this plan, it just increases our percentage per year, but we're paying for it. The employees cover it.
Any other questions for Bobby? We're not gonna vote on this till the end of the month.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, consider discontinuing, large animal burial services. Christopher? Yes, sir. These jobs, you got a real nice color-coded map there, yeah.
Been playing with crayons.
It turns out there's a lot more options than we actually thought was available.
Yeah.
He's following up Bobby's lead. You see, Bobby's already talked about no-brainers up here, so Chris decided to bring his color crayons.
Attention, I'm tactile, right? So, where would you like to go with this, Mr. Tucker?
Tell us what we're doing with our large burial.
With large animal burial, we broke it down into 3 main options that do not deal with wildlife. Live animal that we get calls on would go to animal control. Dying animals, people call us, I've got a dog that's dying, I've got cows that are dying. Depending on the size of the animal, it offers a variety of things. If it's a dying small pet, it would go to animal control for the best use. If it was livestock, it would go to be euthanized, or we could try and offer our rendering service as well. If we're dealing with dead animals, it comes straight down size, we're able to take them in at the transfer station, or if they have to seek another means. And it's all based on how large the animal is to how long it's been dead. So if we have farmers calling in, they know a cow that's fixing to go down, so long as it is dying or has been dead within the past 4 hours, we have the possibility of doing live rendering. Right now, that's a $40 cost. That's per trip. So if 2 or 3 farmers know that they've got some that are fixing to go down wormy, they're running out, they can pitch in $20 and fill the trailer up. So 2 farmers could split the cost for $40, so long as they're dying or have been dead within 4 hours. And that's just good management practices. Of course, you know, we can't see every cow all the time. And in those cases, you have to do a burial service. Now, the burial service, we have talked about whether or not to have a vetted program to just offer, you know, chambers members, sorry, the word, let's me there for a minute. Chambers,
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce members, thank you, I appreciate that. As an option also. That would fall to y'all, what you would like to do as far as listing to the public for burial services. Now, if you look at the bottom where it goes to wildlife, we do get calls on live animals, raccoons, possums in my trash can, that sort of thing, that would go to animal control. Now, if it's a dead animal, it depends on the location of the carcass, whether it's on personal property or in the right-of-way. If it's in the county right-of-way, of course, we would take care of it. If it's in the state right-of-way, the state DOT barn would have to take care of it. However, if it is on personal property, it is not our responsibility to bury. And that again would take them to a burial service if they can't break a shovel out to bury a raccoon. Or if they're suspected of it, it's on them to have the raccoon, or possum, I'll just say raccoon in general. If they suspect that it's rabbit or something of that nature, it's on them to investigate that further, not on us. But the sheet that we have in front of you with my crayons breaks it down to where it can be passed out to where if anybody got a phone call, they could break down through the list to see which department it needed to go to and what course of action. So with y'all's approval, we could put this into effect in no time at all. I have the animal rendering service out of Eatonton. I'm more than happy to get some more business right there, and if the price of fuel goes down, then their cost to come up here per trip will also, go down. It's sitting at 40 right now. They said if diesel gets over 3, it may, have to fluctuate a little bit for their coverage to come up, but that's the cheapest option we have for a farmer that knows they have one that's going down and they're not able to get it to the barn. Or if they find one that's dead and rigor mortis hasn't set in, bloat isn't setting in, things of that nature, the internal temperature of the liver, there's a bunch of varying factors that determine whether or not it can go to rendering.
How available are the, is the rendering service? It just gonna be 5 days a week, or
24/7.
is it, okay?
Yes, sir. And they say that within reason, if you call them Christmas morning,
Sure.
they may not be there. And then if they're in our neck of the woods anyway, Wednesdays, at the Athens Stockyard, they stay available on Wednesdays for them, and that's also when they work for the University of Georgia, for the vet school and all their live production facilities. Wednesday are their Athens days, as they put it.
So they pick up from the diagnostic lab?
Yes, sir. All the carcasses, and if they can load down that 5,500 Dodge, 12-foot bed is covered, meets all state standards, but they'll sit there and wait until the stockyard has received before they head back to eat, just so that they're getting the most out of each trip as they go. And so that would possibly be a cut in cost if they saw the potential for us to have like a cheap day, like Wednesday. If you let us know before noon, we'll do $20. Sir, yes, sir.
This document here, is this the one you're talking about possibly handing out to
Yes, sir.
everybody?
Yeah.
Only thing I would ask is if you can put those phone numbers on here,
Yes, sir.
Control and rendering services, just so they got it all in a one sheet
Oh,
deal.
Lord. It would have an appendix, where the red is on your form is where the buck stops. Where it's either go to a rendering service, burial, or the transfer station. Those are our 3 methods primarily for the independent user. When it gets into the right of way, of course, it's our road departments. But, the red boxes are the stopping point. And that's where, if we wanna do lists, if we wanna put certain numbers in, that's where we would add it after y'all's discussion and approval.
Would you feel like we're ready to assemble a list of potential service providers for Bear?
Oh, yes, sir. If y'all set a deadline tonight, we could have it ready then, the next meeting probably.
I noticed on the next page, you said go into effect January 1st, so we'll probably need to vote on tonight to give them 30 days, or June 1st.
June 1st.
That's
June
me.
1st. We'd have to vote tonight to give them 30-day notice.
Yes, sir. If y'all pass it on the condition that, as of June 1st, we have the list, we can compile that in hours, in all honesty. We have people that are willing to do it. It would just depend on whether or not we wanted them to be vetted or Chamber of Commerce members. Chamber of Commerce members.
We can only recommend them be.
Recommend.
What about the requirements for the Department of Ag, would they need to have some sort of certification with the Department of Ag?
Joe Blow with a backhoe that digs a chicken pit doesn't, no, for the most part, where it should be or not. So if we did have a recommended list that was vetted, that's something we could do as a county to help cover our waterways and the state waters of protection.
If you do that, you just need to have objective criteria for
Yes.
vetting them so that, we don't get into making judgment calls about who gets on the list and who doesn't.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So they do have, people that have got some kind of certification in that level?
Not
that
through
we can-
GDA or USDA. That would, like with plumbing, I'm a licensed plumber versus.
So it'd be hard for us, to tell whether they were, basically, it's hard to do.
Yes.
Well, the only thing you can really control is the location, because you have to give them, they get a piece of paper that'll tell them how deep, how long, how wide, and how far back are the setbacks. That's really the only thing that we can control.
But that's public knowledge.
Yeah.
Right, they're accessible through,
So, as far as the folks with the backhoes, most everybody can do that. They just gotta follow the standards. that-
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so I guess it'd be just a list of the folks that, we might wanna inquire out there, who's burying animals.
Yeah.
Put them on the list and then let the folks show them,
Yes, sir.
pick them out.
Yes. Can we have some volunteers?
Yeah, there's already been people
You already done, you already got that.
saying they wouldn't be on it yet.
Chris,
Trying to make sure that if y'all wanted to move forward, it was,
Yeah.
we would have a semblance of a grander plan available for the general public.
Okay, good.
do you feel qualified if we said like something, something Mike stated, if we had a vetting process, would you feel qualified to say if you want for us to say as commissioners, for you in order to get on this list and be a Madison County certified barrier, then you have to go through this training conducted by you? Would that,
Yes, sir. That would, yeah. I
that'd
feel
work? Very good.
cover, if y'all approve that, it would be a very simple process. Give me 30 minutes with them and
Right.
a computer,
Well,
you know, and we can do it.
no, I'm asking, of course, I don't feel the county would be under any obligation about this, but would insurance also be a requirement
That would be.
or
That's
consideration
what y'all would-
to make the list?
Yeah, I mean, again, that'd be up to y'all to, I don't know if, I'm not sure what kind of insurance you would buy, or if most of the people who do this would have coverage of that type, so.
Yeah,
Most
it'd be
of
like
them
a-
are gonna have an umbrella package when they're digging, from personal experience, when I had
They should have.
subcontract, they
Yeah,
should.
They should have.
I
Yeah, you're just talking about
didn't
like just,
take
like general liability,
Yes.
workers'
Yeah.
comp and that kind of stuff, okay,
Now,
yeah.
if y'all wanna set a limit, like what they have to have, I guess
Yeah.
that would be,
I don't know that we can actually do that.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about requirements to be put on the list, people don't have to use the
Put on the
stuff
list
on
that
the
the
list.
county's gonna
No,
get
I
out.
got you, yeah.
See, workman's comp would not be a consideration because most of these guys have less than 3 employees.
Right.
You know.
but if they did happen to hit a gas line, to have insurance cover their end for
It'd
the
be-
fire and EMS and the deals that come along with hitting the gas line. Call them before you
Be there.
leave, folks.
To their advantage.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think Mr. Chandler's suggestion is very good.
Oh, yeah.
Are we setting ourselves up for, entering into the Department of Agriculture concern? Where I'm concerned about is establishing this list and then having to maintain it and keep up with whatnot. I'm okay if we wanna establish, I would call a cursory initial list and say, these are some of the people that have approached us saying they'd be willing to provide those services.
Yes.
And then after a certain time, I don't know if I want to continue the service of vetting vendors that may or may not be responsible, then how often we do it. And
Yes.
I'm just worried about the long-term commitment.
yes.
Recertification and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And that's a good point, and so, I mean, I've got other clients who keep lists, and they just put a disclaimer on it that says this is not, these providers are not endorsed or vetted by the government, this is purely for your public convenience.
And hopefully this will just be in easing into this new procedure, to where after a time, well, I've got his number, or you've got his number, in networking going out and putting it on the individual rather than us having to vet in the long term, or for the insurance, trying to ease it off and put it onto the people and their responsibility for maintaining their property.
The other critical component is gonna be publicity, making sure everybody knows, everybody's aware, of all the different avenues that we have to get that out there, make sure we do a good job of that.
I think with, working with perhaps the Farm Bureau and the newspaper,
Extension.
the cooperative extension this
Yeah.
night, trying to put it out to as many different feelers throughout the county that would deal, not just with agriculture, but also with like the animal shelter in question. There's some dogs that are over the 150-pound limit. You know, we've all seen big Saint Bernard or big,
Pyrenees.
Pyrenees, yes, thank you, sir, the gosh, fluffy white ones. They can get over 150 pounds, and you're starting to ask a lot. When you're taking in animals that size, or calves, or goats even, big boar goat getting that large, it's giving everybody options and taking us out of the business.
And I'm sure we can get the chamber involved with it, and I'm sure there'll be some people that would probably, if they're not already members of the chamber, might
Look at
look at
investment.
doing that.
And then everybody in the county that tends to get these calls, they need to know, the protocol, how to direct people.
Yes, sir.
I think it's put this down, I feel a lot better about it.
Yes, ma'am. So if you want to keep the June 1st deadline, I'll need a motion to approve to disconnect large animal burial service effective June 1, 2021. Unless y'all want to change the June 1st deadline.
I think I'm more inclined, if we're gonna provide an initial list, if we'll just,
Put it all together.
I would ask you to go ahead and do that, bring it back, in a couple weeks.
Yes.
And then we'll have our 30-day commitment, and it may push June 1st to July 1 or something, but I think if we're gonna pass the ordinance, let's go ahead and have the next steps identified.
Yes, sir.
And just again, like, here's an initial list of contact people, and then do an education component.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully the private industry will take that on, and then, just kind of slide out from under us.
No problem.
And in the meantime, every call that comes into the county, I go ahead and let them know, this is short-term service, here are the, options that you're going to have, so just go ahead and begin that process, make a smoother transition.
I think it was Tuesday of this week, they had 8. 8 in one day. I think it was Tuesday. All right, no problem. You may not, might as well not go nowhere. Might as well not go nowhere. The next one is, discuss adopting nuisance and abatement ordinance. Jack, you gonna talk about this with us?
Might as well.
Come on.
I think this has been on the table for a long time.
How long?
I think we've been talking about it for years. But it's probably starting to come together, and I looked up, and I've been gone for a couple of years, retired, came back. And, I guess all we've got, these are the highlighted and red, a few little changes that we made in it. And basically, my biggest concern when I read it was it did not address solid waste on the property that need to be demolished, and it did not address the solid waste that's gonna be surrounding that property. So I asked that to be put back in there, and everything else is pretty much what we've been working on for a year or so.
In that matter, with Mr. Jack's comment, dealing with solid waste, I've also added the county ordinance as a reference point to add in that deals with solid waste and the references for the definition thereof with solid waste. The additional edits you may see in there, not only from the solid waste, but the definition of uncleanliness as well. There are some clarification points that, if y'all would like, it also references back to the county ordinance for very precise definition where it's not open-ended. And there was a few pieces in here where it was talking about certain inspectors, particularly we felt as a department, using the terminology of public officers, would allow not only ourselves or the sheriff's department, but the road department to contact us, and it still be a verifiable source coming from a Madison County public officer. So that was one big change, instead of having to be a specific person or a specific office within our government, that, oh, we heard this and it's getting passed around, anybody can report it in those government.
Well, but your public officer is defined on the second page, so you just added code enforcement officer to building inspector.
Well, we
Yeah.
had it set up, we had code enforcement in one, but that was on the specifics.
Yeah, but if you put public officer here, then that's going to be.
And we can change it.
That's gonna be either the building inspector or code enforcement officer, which is fine, that's fine, I'm just.
For that specific designation in section B.
Correct,
Yes.
yeah, that's what,
That was just for one very specific
Yeah.
section where we use that instead of the public officer.
So all the changes that y'all felt like we needed to make has already been made in this document?
Yes.
Okay. So on the 24th, is that right? That next meeting? That'll be the adoption line if everybody sees fit.
Yes. And if anybody needs a copy of the county ordinance, we can put that together as well.
I really appreciate how y'all attach those county ordinances to this, because it clears it up a lot.
I agree with Jack, this is gonna be a long time.
I mean, that's just sort of.
And it's a
It's
tool,
I did not
I mean, I've got two properties that
Yes,
are leased.
okay, all right, that's what I did, that's fine, I'm happy to do
One of them, I'm gonna bring Bio Chemist out of the center,
Yeah.
they still have no money, and they're still not gonna take it. And actually, it's in property that's in
If I
test
had
state,
known, I would have happily done it.
and one of the three are dead. And another one, I think, is in a nursing home, so, you know, but this will help us fix it.
Absolutely.
The intent has always been not to make anybody out of a home, but just to clean the mess up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the intent of all this.
But the one we're talking about, nobody's been in that home for 10 years. It's just burned up, double wide, that nobody can afford to demolish. We're refusing to sell it. Any other questions?
I wanna thank you both, because I know exactly what y'all been doing for the past 3 weeks. And, Chris, I want to say I'm sorry, because I did not know you were gonna be thrown that much in the fire right out the gate. But we were not gonna go into details, but I promise you they're up to here right now, and messes we have all over the county. And some of them is very concerning. Some of them have been going on for years that nobody was aware of. But, y'all, I'm extremely proud that you're here. I'm proud, Jack, that you're helping.
Some of the previous discussion, I know when I came on the board, I think there was some concern, and it may have been a former commissioner, but anyway, I think some of the intent of the process was not like an old farm building or something. It's not, that's not the intent to go around and clean up every particular building in agriculture.
As a deputy, I'm gonna tell you, it's officer discretion. We already know what we're gonna work on. When we get through that, we'll probably be retired by then. If there's enough out there to not even look at dilapidated old chicken house. You would think maybe the farmer would clean them up and sell them one day. That's not what we're looking at.
Well, I mean, what it says like code, if somebody got an old chicken house and they're storing hay in it for agricultural purposes, and the electrical may not be up to code, no, I mean, that's not,
And we're not going there.
yeah, right.
That's a hay barn now. It used to be a chicken house, now it's a hay barn.
And the addition of the county ordinance actually helps solidify that, where it has to be structure and use, water quality, or trash unsafe, which would be, contaminants, that may not be in asbestos, for instance.
And for me and all my friends who does old cars and old hot rods, we're not after that. This is not what we're doing now. It's a junkyard like up there on the road we all know about, but, this is strictly from a safety standpoint. That's what we're enforcing. Safety standpoint issues.
Health,
Yeah.
welfare.
Health and welfare of children and families.
Trailers that caught fire and then caught fire again.
Yeah.
Nobody was living in them, but caught fire again. That's more where this is going, maybe not the spontaneous combustion of haylage, so to say, inside a barn.
All right, well, thanks, guys.
Thank y'all very much for your consideration.
We'll see you in the morning.
All right, number 6, consider approving a 2021 beer and wine license for Cobber LLC. Hello, Ms. Melanie.
Thank you guys for seeing me again here today. I did bring Mr. Betzler. He is still recovering from his surgery and he's on some medication. He said he would answer questions, but he would rather me answer questions. So if you guys have anything that I can't answer, I'll be happy to ask him and he can help us. I also brought his counsel with us today and he can give me any documentation I need to get that in.
How long has he owned the business?
Since 2018,
Which month was that?
February 1st. I'm sorry, not February, April 1st, 2018.
What are the hours of the business?
6 a.m. to midnight.
He can't answer those.
He can, but he would rather me answer them just because he is on pain medication.
How many employees?
2,
Who are those?
myself and Shahid Aluk.
Who schedules the employees?
I do.
So it's just two. Who does the ordering for the store?
Shahid and I both do.
But that's only if somebody else, you know what I mean?
Who signs the checks?
Johnny does. John Allen does.
Who handles the accounts payable and receivable?
Johnny and I both do.
Besides all the checks.
Yes, sir.
And what's the monthly rent?
4,000 a month. It should be 6,000 a month, but we're not able to pay that amount because we don't have beer and wine and we're barely making it. Beer and wine brings more than just beer and wine sales. It also brings cigarette sales. It brings food sales. It brings whatever else you have in the store. If it's a one-stop shop, they're gonna stop there to get everything, not just one thing. So you can see how if you have everything that a normal convenience store would have, you're gonna make more money, rather than, oh, we have half of what we should be offering. So it really affects business in a negative way. A convenience store is for convenience, so we have, you know, I mean, we still have.
We understand that part of it, we're
Sure,
just trying to figure
sure.
out the. The reason that it's been denied before.
Sure,
So-
and we are as well.
Mr. Betts, is there anything you'd like to say on your behalf before they vote tonight?
I appreciate your consideration, for my beverage license.
I know there's been some questions about you being here, and I appreciate you
Yes.
coming tonight.
It's
to
been a
take
little
any
bit
of
of a
those
struggle.
questions also. Thank you.
Between, virus and, prostate surgery. Kinda took a wrong turn a little bit on it, but I'm getting better.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Betts?
Obviously, the concern is general. My opinion is the ability to ensure that there's no relationship here with the owner of the business that has obviously been problematic, with owner of the facility. Property that's been really problematic for the county. And there's a long record there of problems, and there needs to be some concrete assurance to this board that there's clear, broad separation.
Absolutely, and there is. I have given you guys the articles of incorporation showing that Mr. Betts is the sole owner of Dog Star LLC. He is the one making this application. He's here with me today. He and I are the sole managers of this business. I mean, I don't know what else I can say to you guys or what else I can do to show you this. I've given you all documentation I possibly could, you know, showing this. So I think that, you know, legally, everything that we have is on board. I mean, I don't know what else I could do.
I have a question for Mr. Pruitt. Now, approving this license, we still do yearly.
Correct.
Correct. So we could look at it this way. If so choose, is if something did not go correctly, come back up January 1, you could deny that license.
Or can it be terminated for cause?
Or if there's a violation, yeah, for example, if there's a prosecution for an underage sale there,
That's correct.
you know, you can take action on that if and when that happens.
You're halfway through the year.
Sure.
And I don't want to call it a probationary period because it's not, but what I'm saying is if something was to arise, because the way I just heard you say that is you wanted to feel more reassured about it, and therefore you have an opportunity, if nothing comes up between now and Christmas illegally, then you have your assurance.
I have no intentions of doing anything illegal at all, just so everybody knows.
When did you become a manager?
The beginning of this year.
Who'd been operating the business prior to that, just out of curiosity?
Um,
Mr. Betts been doing it
Mr.
himself?
Betts, Mr.
Okay.
Betts is-
And you have three
On the
employees.
sheriff's office thing, it shows amend as the manager agent. I don't know that,
No,
That's
the
different.
next one, that's the next one.
I'm sorry, y'all just got three employees too?
Yes, sir. Myself, Johnny, and Shahid Alba. We do have one girl that cleans up, but she doesn't like run cash registers or that sort of thing. She helps us stock and what have you.
And your rent's gonna go from 48,000 a year to 72,000 a year if this is approved.
Right now, we have a verbal commitment on 4,000 a year.
Month.
I mean, a month, I'm
Month,
sorry.
48 a year.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. And the only reason is right now, we just don't have the money to pay it. I mean, we're an established business and, you know,
What was your gross sales? I've read that number in previous, what was it last year?
we'll look on our tax information for you to see that.
So who was Mr. Betts's employee before you?
We've gone through several, even while I've been there. Really, they were handling it themselves, him and, Mr. Betts and Mr. Shiny Doma. But it's a chore to do it that way, with two people, so.
My note says gross sales on the 2019 tax return were 902,504. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
Are y'all hourly or salary? Well, how's
Salary.
it? Mike, do we have that information?
It's on the tax return, well, not per employee, but their salary expense on the tax return for 2019 was 74,000 total. And there was actually a loss in that year to Mr. Betts, just under 13,000. There was a small gain the year before, about 8,000.
Any more questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve or a motion to deny the beer and wine license for Dogborough LLC.
I make a motion to deny.
I have a motion to deny.
So,
Second. Second by Mr. Chandler. Discussion.
my concern and reason for my second, obviously, for the sake of the community and obviously, the history of problems at that location is caused under the ownership that the property is under. Just personally, I'm not completely satisfied that there's separation. That is my opinion. That's the reason for my second.
All right.
In regards to this, I've got to say too, and I'm gonna ask Mike a question here. I don't see this as a viable business, just doing numbers, you know, versus salary versus what potential rent would do. But Mike, I guess my question would be directed towards Mr. Betts and Ms. Doug, is at this point, in your judgment, have they met the criteria of the county to secure a beer and wine license?
Well, so I've got to go back to, the reason it's been denied in the past is the 6-63G of county ordinances that say that the applicant has to have adequate financial participation in the proposed business to direct and manage its affairs and is not acting as a quote mere surrogate for another. So they supply tax returns for 2018 and 2019 that show, it shows the gross, the expenses, I mean, just, do you mind if I just share those numbers with,
Please.
is that Mr. Betts? Well, you're speaking for Mr. Betts, as long as that's okay. Yeah, okay. So,
Let me say that the reason I'm asking these questions
Yes, sir.
is I do have concerns that Ms. Bettis and Terry have both boards.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that whichever way we vote on this is fair and in compliance with what our charged responsibilities are. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yes, sir.
so, yeah, and so I don't guess I need to get into the numbers for that. I mean, they've shown tax returns of the money in, money out. You know, it's, I think that's consistent with what Ms. Dove says. Nobody's getting rich over there, but they have, you know, at least in 2018, it returned a small profit. In 2019, there was a loss, but, you know, not a horrific one. So, question goes back to, you know, is there sufficient evidence of financial participation by the applicant, by Mr. Betts? And so the history over there alone, that gives you some cause for concern. If you know, you were to deny the license and he were to sue the county to make you issue the license, the courts are pretty deferential to the county's judgment on that. You know, it would be a high burden, high standard of proof that Mr. Betts would have to show to prevail. But you're looking at any evidence, basically, would be the standard there. So you probably have any evidence, but do you have a lot of evidence in your judgment as commissioners? I don't know if I could go there, frankly. Not that that's the legal standard, but they've sort of provided the prima facie evidence through these tax returns that there is a viable independent business operating there. Again, not a great one, but one that's struggling along and making it, at least through 2019. And please feel free, Eric or whomever, to jump in and correct me if you think I mischaracterize anything.
I mean, I would just say that, you know, in this situation, Mr. Bettis is in negotiations with the landlord to try to keep the place, so it's kind of ironic, you know, that would come up. I mean, he's fighting to be able to pay the rent and keep the place, so, you know, it's a lot of, I mean, it's not just tax revenue for the county, but it's, you know, it's been a hard year. They didn't get a PPP loan, you know, people are going to Athens over the line or to the next shop to get gas because they can pick up beers there. You know, it's a matter of them keeping the place so that relationship with the landlord is more adversarial than cooperative at this point, because the landlord obviously wants as much rent as they can get. And so they're trying to boost their revenue for that reason.
And that would be, if I might, I mean, really the ultimate question is, if you don't mind me asking, and you can tell Melanie, Ms. Betts, to answer or not if you want to, but do you have any dealings with the landlord other than just paying the rent every month?
No.
Okay, does he try to tell you how to, you know, does he have any input into the operation of the business?
No, not at all.
Okay, doesn't advise on inventory or business operations?
He has so many businesses himself that he runs, properties, whatever. He just wants his rent. That's it.
Okay.
I mean, he's not gonna step into anybody's business that he's leased it to. I mean, it's just not a feasible thing.
Okay, and so, as the chairman says, if we find out that's not the case between now and the end of this year, when the application comes up again, we can act on it at that time.
Not taking sides, because I'm not going to unless I'm forced to. This is how I see this, and I've heard and read all the previous documents and then what you produced now. And thank you for trying to comply. I can't take a moral position on this, and I respect Mr. Chandler and Ms. Bettis. I'm gonna look at just the facts on paper. And what if this was to turn into a suit, at what taxpayer dollar figure do I want to get into to be found in the right? We done it right. We voted in the court of law. We voted to say you don't get your license, but am I willing to spend that money to get that vote? for you to bring it back to me in 2 years again, and me to go back through that again. That's the position that I'm taking today.
Sure.
I'm scared to think of wasting taxpayer dollars. I would like to see, on my vote, I would like to see it follow through as suggested, but I don't give up.
I'm just trying to uphold what I think is right.
I agree.
So, I will stand for that, so. Mhm.
I have a first and second by Mr. Chandler. Any more discussion?
I just share with the group that I had several calls, really reflecting the history of what's been there. And consequently, I struggle myself on trying to past performance, if you would. We've got a different person there, and the separation issue, it's hard to hang that hat. To me, it's hard to hang that hat with someone trying to, without any further evidence of some sort of collusion, if you would. I understand the past history, we don't want any repeats of that, and so I kind of rely on the renewals and the right of revocation that we got at our disposal if this passes.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, I think it starts with Brian.
So the vote is to deny the license, so a yes is to
Motion
deny.
Let me just say, before I go, I've had a lot of calls, and this is not even close to my district. And this is one of those issues where I don't know what exactly the right thing to do is, but I guess I'll have to go with my, what I see is something that would be fair, and I guess until the folks prove that they're not following and doing the right thing and in the community, I guess I would have to vote no for this.
So that's a no on the motion to deny.
Okay.
No.
With real reservations, no.
Yes.
Yes.
So motion carries.
So that's the motion to deny, so now somebody needs to make a motion to permit, to grant.
I have a motion to grant the beer and wine license for Dogborough LLC.
I'll make a motion to approve the board for the application.
I have a motion by Mr. Belster. Have a second.
I guess I would do the second.
I have a second by Mr. Kirk. All in favor starts with,
Oh, we have to
I'm
have
sorry, discussion again, I'm sorry.
Okay, I didn't want to bring this up, but in the history, this store has a history of selling to underage. And
And the
it's
history,
been years of doing that. And there is a relationship between you and the owner, correct?
somewhat, yes.
So, I'm just standing for what I feel is, you know, it's a community out there. I'd rather spend money on fighting for what, okay, personally I think is right. I mean, everybody has their opinion, just, we have a 5-person board.
I don't know what that means either.
I can promise you that I am never going to sell to underage. I can promise you, anything on me, I will not sell to underage. I know Mr. Betts will also not sell to underage. Nor Mr. Shaheen.
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ms. Betts.
You know, it's my community, and you know, you said to me that, oh, well, you're only gonna be here for, 2 more meetings. I'm gonna stand for what I feel is right and just in
respect
my
it.
mind, so.
100% respectful.
I guess you made a comment there, and you agreed there is a relationship, so I guess I'm confused that, I thought a while ago they said there was no relationship.
Yeah, I'm confused too.
Well, I think the whole table is now.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm waiting for somebody to explain to me how there was no relationship, but there is a relationship.
There is no business relationship between the landlord and the tenant. No business relationship, other than to pay rent.
So what was the relationship you were referring to in response to Ms. Bettis' question?
I think Ms. Bettis asked, was there any relationship between you, Ms. Dove, and, Mr. I can't think of his
The
name.
landlord Shafiq, or
Yes.
the owner of the landlord LLC, Muhammad Shafiq?
Muhammad. That was the question. She said somewhat, but there's none between Mr. Bettis.
So y'all,
That's-
I'm trying
you
to
do
figure
that?
that.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm just asking a question, so there is a personal relationship, is that what I understand?
I'm not sure how it's relevant to the business, but there is a personal relationship, yes.
Okay. It's just, I guess in full disclosure, I would have felt better if I'd have known that earlier.
In relation to the business, there is no relationship.
So the applicant, if I remember right, is Mr. Betts and his business, right?
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Betts and, well, I'll ask you,
Sure,
does Mr. Betts oversee you? Does he know what's going on in that business?
absolutely,
Okay. Is he holding you accountable for running that business?
absolutely.
Okay.
He signs my paycheck.
Okay.
That's where we at. Yeah, I have a motion and a second. It's on Mr. Adams.
Unless there's further discussion.
Oh, it's just, yeah. Unless there's any further discussion.
Number two.
If there's no further discussion, you just call for the vote.
All right, no further discussion. Mr. Adams?
No.
No. No.
I made the motion, but I'm leaning towards the no now.
You can vote your vote.
Yeah, that's my vote.
The motion to deny. Correct?
Correct.
It's unanimous, correct?
Well, that was a motion to grant, but I think it failed unanimously. So that's the action.
Break down by the table and close it now. All right.
That is correct.
The motion to approve
Failed,
failed.
Yeah.
Unanimous.
right,
No.
yeah. So I hate to do this, but to be perfectly clear so that, you know, we can send, I need to send a letter, within 10 days, so it would be nice to have an approved motion to deny, if we want to renew that one now.
I make a motion to deny.
Motion by Ms. Bettis, have a second by Mr. Chandler. All in favor, and it's on you, Derek.
I think it's mine.
Oh, is it yours?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. All right. Consider placing T-Splosh on November ballot. So this past week, on Thursday evening, I met with all the mayors to discuss the T-Splosh. And all the mayors are in agreement to move forward with putting it on the ballot in November. The only discussion that we had regarding the T-Splosh was the division. At this point, I'm trying to get clear information. So you sneak in back here, clear information as far as the actual mileage. We felt like the mileage may be the best divisionary factor for the cities. And it looks like we've run into a little bit of a snag because the county mileage for the cities and the city mileage for the cities are not corresponding. They're different. Some of the cities are showing less mileage than the county's showing, so they're gonna have to go back and each city is gonna have to pull the DOT contract and see what's on it for center line mileage. Once we have that, then we'll move forward in determining how the dollar figures will be allocated. But the cities are 100% behind it at this point, unless something's changed. I see Mr. Wideman showed up.
Nothing's changed on our part.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, this would really be sort of a preliminary vote anyway,
It
just to
is.
keep moving forward.
It is, that's
because-
all it is.
Yeah, because, you know, assuming we get all this together with the cities, we'll be coming back to, or chairman will be coming back to the board, and each mayor will be going to their council in June with the actual intergovernmental agreement and the resolution that has all the details.
That is correct, sir. This-
But we do need to vote on it?
Well,
Not this right now.
yeah.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right.
I'm just letting you know what's transpired so far, that all the cities are on the
Okay.
board. But until we get an actual split amount, then we'll vote at that point, because you'll be voting not only to put it on November, but you're also voting to agree to pay X dollar to each city.
Exactly, so there's no need for a vote right now.
But there are time requirements that we'll need to.
There are, we're actually, so the chairman and the mayors are kind of pushing for us to try to all get this done in the month of June. Truthfully, as long as we get it done before the end of July, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to get it done with a little breathing room.
Thank you.
As a general concept, just have a total number of miles of center line and then proportion that based on percentage in Danielsville, percentage in Cobber, et cetera.
Yeah, and you're looking at me, but that was the chairman's idea, but if we didn't reach agreement, well, if we didn't reach agreement, number one, we couldn't do 1%, we'd have to do 0.75%. But it would be awarded on the state auditor's certification of actual expenditures on transportation by each entity over the last
If we
3
can't
years.
decide.
If we
Yeah,
cannot
if
come
we
to an
can.
agreement. When the chairman suggested that, I thought road miles is probably a pretty good proxy for how much you spent, so, and a lot easier number to get to.
It's convoluted if they don't, like.
Yeah.
Yes, we hope we don't have to go there. All right, consider seal bid process with an agreed upon survey where the Danielsville Fire Department is located. I'll just tell you all three because they're all saying the same thing. Consider seal bid process with agreed upon survey where College Fire Department is located. Consider conveying land with agreed upon survey where Danielsville Maintenance Shop is located. This is something that we hope by the time we come into our next meeting, we will have documents in front of us to vote on if we decide to convey this land, correct?
Well, I don't think they're ready to pay for surveys until.
That's right, that's what it was, I'm sorry. So, yeah, they're all agreeing to pay for the survey, but they don't wanna go out and spend the money if we're not gonna vote to convey these properties over to them.
So, Danielsville Fire Department, on that one,
Yes, sir.
and I've talked to a lot of firemen, and then also Collins and group and everything. I know we had some concern about, you know, if we convey property, especially the Danielsville area, about what could they do with it in the future. I'll tell you how the firemen look at it. Firemen say, well, we've been out there, we volunteered and we're doing it, but you don't trust us to let us have the property so that we can finance, things like if they need a building or something like that. So we, in the process of this, we probably have already irritated a lot of folks if we don't go ahead and try to, you know, deed this property over to them, you know, with the sealed bid process. Now, it's not guaranteed that all that'll work out exactly. I mean, if we could have some complicated issues, I guess, with that. Mr. Pruitt could talk about that, but, you know, I think that, especially in those two areas, I think we should go ahead and, you know, go ahead with the plan to have the sealed bid process. And that way they would go ahead and do the surveys, and I think it would be supporting our fire departments. I don't think that, you know, in talking with the leadership of the fire association and the fire departments themselves, they're anticipating that they're ever gonna, you know, be out of the fire department business. It's hard right now to get people, that might be the thing that kills the fire department, and we might have to start looking at hiring some folks to do that, which will be a whole different transition for the county at some point. But right now, I don't see this as being a bad thing to convey the property to them.
All the other fire departments already own their property outright.
Yeah, that's right.
So Mike, we can get a consensus. We don't necessarily need a vote at this point. And the only reason I'm recommending this is because we don't have an actual land footage amount documented. But if they have a consensus to say, move forward with your surveys, and then when we do vote, we can vote an actual acreage, like 2.14, so forth and so on. And could we also include in that contract, if that establishment ever dissolved as a fire department, the property would revert back to the county?
Well, so let me talk
If you chose to.
talk about both of those, first and first. So the risk is all on the fire departments there. So if they go out and get the survey between now and the next meeting, there's, you know, obviously no guarantee that the board would vote to even put it out for sealed bid, but that's not the big risk. What if the fire departments get outbid? What if there's some investor out there who really wants those properties for some other purpose? That's the worst result possible for the fire departments. Now, secondly, the reverter clause, if even assuming that were legal and enforceable, which is a little bit questionable, that's going, if you put a reverter clause in the deed to the fire departments, that's going to totally defeat their purpose for owning it in the first place, because they can't get financing.
Sure.
So the fire departments, the ones that built on county land or whatever, or that was leased to the Dansville Fire Department was leased to the city for 99 years. And so,
Yeah, and I was going to bring it.
that's just a bad thing, huh? There's no way we can get around that to where they could use that for financing purposes.
I mean, the only way for them to get ownership of the property, it has to be a sealed bid. I mean, that's, you know, that's the statute. Now, the exception is, there's some exceptions, and one of those is if you're, the county's conveying property to another, quote, instrumentality of the state. Cities are generally considered to be instrumentalities of the state. So if the board, I think on number 10, you were talking about, that would actually be to the city of Danielsville, right?
Yeah.
So that one would, I mean, assuming the board wants to give that property to the city, that's okay. There's an exception to the auction process for that. But the fire departments are not, they're not governmental entities, they're private nonprofits, so, you know. Now, if you want to, if the Danielsville Fire Department would rather, is that property within the city limits?
It is.
I mean, if the fire department would rather the city own their land than the county own their land?
I don't think it'll do them any good financing wise.
Oh, no, that's right, still not their
No,
land.
I mean, that's the whole thing, I mean.
Now, didn't we talk about a clause on it to where,
You can reject.
that we could reject all bids?
Yeah, we can reject all
So-
bids, that's
so
true.
that's the safety
That's
net for
the,
the
that's
fire
the safety
department.
net, that's true,
If anybody bids but a fire department, we could reject all bids.
that's true.
If nobody does, we can move forward.
Can you put criteria on the bid advertising the county was going to sell this property for the purpose of, so that any bidder would know that they're gonna be buying it for the purpose of maintaining a fire department that would serve this county.
Well,
Can we put that in the
the only way to
stipulation
make
set
that
the
legally
bid?
enforceable is a reverter clause in the deed, which makes it useless to the fire departments for financing purposes.
So the only gamble is a second bid coming in, and we have to reject.
That's true.
all bids. That's the only.
That's true.
And then, but then we can tell the fire departments what we
We tried, but if you had too many bids, sorry.
Mr. Pruitt, is there another alternative? Is there a better solution in your mind?
No,
That's what
I've read many things, talked to many people, this is just one of them.
Make sure we weren't overlooking something.
Yeah.
Are we still moving?
All right, so moving on, you know what to, no,
Brian, I think we could, it'd be in my mind, if the fire department feels comfortable with proceeding, then I think they know, if you can give them my wishes, obviously, for them to come up with half the property. Again, there is that possibility that somebody else is gonna want it, and we can refuse it, and we just be right back where we were.
I guess that you said we could have a consensus. I mean, do we have a consensus in that? Or is
it's
it-
about the only way you can do it.
Huh?
Yes.
That we would, that if we,
That if they proceed with the survey, that we would continue this process.
yeah.
That's a good way to word it. We'll continue the process if they will continue the survey.
If they provide the survey, we,
Is there? I guess. is
So
it-
the next time it would be on the agenda,
Well,
there
they'll
would
have
be
a
a
survey.
survey
Well, they'll have a
for the
survey.
board to consider.
That's correct.
Then the
Yeah.
board can, so,
I think the question you may want to ask Commissioner Kirk is if any of your fellow board members have any reservations
Well, that's-
going forward on that
that's what I'm
understanding.
getting.
That's what he's trying to get to.
you know, that's what I'm getting at.
I don't have any reservations
No,
for
yes.
proceeding with these.
All right, now moving on.
You go okay, Teresa?
Yep.
Derek, I want to hear it.
Well,
You got some reservations.
no, I'm trying to outlaw the lawyer, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything in my past history where and I'm not saying there is, I'm just saying in my line of work, if there was some avenue that in exchange for services provided of some equal value to the land, allowed some exchange versus,
Not for services, but there is, well, of course, we've been contracting for those services, so there's already been agreed upon consideration for that. The only exchange, now the exchange exception is for property, we could swap property.
what if we consider a value on the property and do that in exchange for cash under the current contract?
For what?
Whatever.
Oh, well, but now you're back to, no, I mean, now you're just selling for cash, so no, the exception when you're exchanging for cash is called buying and selling.
I'm getting, what I was, in my mind, where Derek is, because they're contracting for service in the county, does that put them in a different light in any way?
No, I don't think so, because then they would just be, again, they would be buying property for cash or something in lieu of cash. The only barter provision is for another piece of land. So, I mean, if the county wants a piece of land somewhere, the fire department could go out and buy it for us, and then we could swap for it.
but that has to be equal and,
But you have to have
Equal value.
appraisals of both, so that they're equal value, that's right.
again, I'm okay moving on with the consensus and moving that forward. We did ask that the fire departments, the chiefs come together and try to develop some sort of coherent long-term plan, and I'm rather for that, I'm sorry, some of them, as Brian said, I feel like we're making it more difficult in the end, but I think there has to be some sort of long-term plan there, and I think it just needs to be articulated, and that's just a commitment that we need to come to terms with. And that's for 8-9. I I do have reservations, and if we're separating these, and I don't know if they were all considered together, but I have no reservations on 8 and 9, I still have reservations on the maintenance shop.
Yeah, can see what the value of that would be.
Yeah, and the reservation, yeah, thank you for reminding me, that one concerns the fact of the access, right? Trying to figure out that's not a legal problem of the city being the entity we can convey to, but rather
The practicality of the access and whatnot, and then I guess philosophical thought process of, you know, is what could that may or may not be in the future if, you know, with you know, a variety of things. So I'm still trying to get my head around that one from a county perspective.
Right, so I guess if we got the consensus on 8 and 9, dropping 10 out of that,
Now, if you look at a map, if you look at that plat, when you do this for the fire department, you're basically gonna make an island out of that county piece, because it'll be bordered all but by easement to that maintenance shop that's on county property. Yeah, you'd have to look at the map first to understand, what am I gonna be able to do with it in the future? Really nothing, because then by that point in time, it's surrounded by.
Keeping house access to it.
Oh, I know that. It was threatened one time. That's what we're trying to head off. All right, so moving on.
well, are we gonna communicate this to the?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, now this next one, Lord, I thought we'd be further in this process by now, but we're not. The health insurance policy. So y'all know that I tried my best to go out to bid, for our health insurance. Matt bid well with MSI Benefits, Andrew McCanny with McGriff Insurance Services, and Gloria Camp with Mark III Employer Benefits. The window of opportunity was narrowed greatly. Cigna decided that they wanted to take their time, who we are currently with, in getting all three of these companies their renewal figures. As a matter of fact, I think the only one that got a fair shake in it may have been MSI, on that, because maybe they're the broker currently. The other two come to the table with not accurate numbers based on what Cigna done. So, with that being said, I asked for a 90-day extension to try to evaluate our health insurance a little better. We do know there's a lot of cost savings out there, no matter who we go with, but it more come down to which broker offered the best deal as far as their services they offer. As far as which insurance company you go with, they ain't gonna be before United, Cigna, Aetna, and Anthem. That's really all that's out there. Everybody but Cigna come in roughly the exact same price no matter which group we go with. Andrew McCannon and McGriff Insurance Services, they looked at a self-funding plan of making the county self-funded on their insurance. I don't know that we can actually move on that. I think that would be a big jump for the county to jump off and say we're gonna be self-funded or self-insured. MSI, who's our current one now, they have agreed to give us a 6-month contract, extend our contract now, 6 months, and if we decided to go back out for like a RFQ or something in January, they would. None of these guys can really give anybody accurate information until you make them a broker. If I had no insurance, it would be easy to pick one of the three and say, you're my broker, go give me some numbers. Because the major insurance carriers won't release all the information to all of them fairly. You would think they would, but they don't. And I put this on, this has been on here for a few days, and only did we learn about this about Wednesday of last week, as to how we're not necessarily gonna be able to change right away. even if we were gonna change, I wasn't saying we were gonna change, but I'm just not able to get the accurate numbers. When they come back to me second week in April telling me that I gotta have this approved by May 24th in order for it to go into effect, you can't do major policy with 180 employees in a 4-week time. And that's roughly what I had to work with. So, at this point, we're probably gonna end up sticking with Matt Bidwell. I just wanted y'all to know that.
Yeah, and if I want to make one comment, the, health insurance is currently with Cigna, because I'm on the secondary, it's my secondary insurance. I have United Healthcare as the first, and, I'm gonna tell you, I had a liver transplant, and, I'll just say that Cigna has been great as a secondary insurance. And I've talked to these folks a lot, and, the policy that the county has is really good, okay? So whenever we start looking at new ones, we need to be careful that we're doing them.
That's correct.
We're looking at them
Yeah.
close, because I think one advantage that we can have from the county in hiring folks is our insurance policy, you know? And, so that's, I just wanna make you aware that in looking at that, you know, it's, in talking with them, and some of the things, Cigna offered some things that United Healthcare didn't at Caterpillar, and that's good insurance with them. Of course, Caterpillar's self-insured, and they just use United Healthcare as the thing. And I'll agree with that other about the self-insured. I don't think we could do that. If somebody like me had a liver transplant, and then, and Cigna, I mean, and it was the primary insurance, and we were self-insured, that would eat it up.
Well, the other part about being self-insured is financially to the county, if everything goes well, like it did last year, we had a good year,
Yeah,
we would save a lot of money.
yeah.
But if it didn't go well, you're gonna spend a lot of money. Plus, you're gonna have to basically hire a full-time person to be your healthcare
That's right.
on-site agent. So it's complicated, and we're just not there yet.
That's right.
I appreciate you, wanting to look out, but I do appreciate the relationship we have with Matt Bidwell. He's-
Yeah, he's been great the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow, insurance is tough. And there is so many different plans, and just because, if I say me and Matt's worked it out, he's gonna continue to be the broker of record, still don't mean that we're not gonna change the way we do some of the plans. In other words, you're still gonna get the same coverage, we just may reach it a different way, because we both have agreed that there's a way for the county to save a lot of money that they haven't been saving in the past. This is basically the way the plan's structured.
Right. I just want us to be careful not to reduce the quality of the insurance to the.
Yeah, that's
for the
not the goal
employees.
at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the actual ultimate goal is getting it more affordable, with as good a service as we have now, if not better.
That's good.
All right, discuss approving a 2021 beer and wine license for Cobber Food Mart. Is this up for vote tonight, or just discuss? Okay. Have they met all the criteria? All right. Number 13 and number 14 has been
Well,
removed.
I'd be remiss if I don't at least ask the question, based on our previous discussion, has there been a history of any violations at that location?
Where is that located? I'm trying to figure which
Foot
one.
McCullen Road.
Oh, is that the one at Football
I
Club?
think so.
That's the one Charlie owned then, probably, because he owns all of them in Danielsville. He must have changed the name, because I thought it was Quick Mart.
Quick Check,
Oh, Quick, huh?
It is?
it's called Food Mart. That's why I
Yeah,
couldn't.
this one says Cobber Food Mart.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't, but
Charlie's was good.
So
No.
It's the end of the month.
This was at 7066, Georgia 72, Cobber, Georgia.
Yeah, that's it.
we make it,
So
the
it's the
Robert
old
Food Mart
Quick-
doing business there.
It
the
is.
old Quick Pick, okay.
He has 3 currently in Danielsville, and as long as I was there, you've been there for a year or so, he's never had a violation in the city.
And this is for June 1st. He'll be the owner this May.
So his lease starts June 1st.
Okay, so it's changing hands,
Yeah.
from money to money. Men to money.
Yeah. The application certifies he'll have managerial and supervisory authority beginning June first. Must be a sale.
Has he ever been in this type of business before? Or does he own multiple
He-
locations?
I've never met the man, he told me he was buying it June first and that he owns several
Yeah,
convenience
the
stores.
paperwork's every day.
Well, I have a couple weeks to look over.
He's from Decatur or something.
Yeah, I think the business already has one, but the change in
We don't have to
ownership or
change the
management
ownership.
requires a
Yeah, I know.
renewal.
I
Right, you
understand
can't
that,
transfer a license.
And-
We have, yeah, but I guess then there hasn't been any issues with the
Not with
prior,
Charlie one.
prior owner.
But I think, I mean, I just, previous discussion, location, and past history, so I don't want, I mean, that's due diligence.
Yeah, I agree, I surely don't know. I'm gonna go with
I hadn't heard of any.
the sheriff. Well, the sheriff said, background investigation.
I know. It just ain't that.
You know,
That's all.
I go with what the sheriff's statement here says.
It's just he's okay to apply for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But they say the background check, so,
Yeah, that's the criminal history of the applicant.
that's right. So, if you're looking at,
Moving on. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna move on here.
Look there.
All right, number 13 and number 14 has been removed. The sheriff has to have that tabled at this time. Discuss approving resolution establish the qualification fees for District 3 Commissioner. Unless there's changes, I don't know.
Unless you want to rescind
Rescind
your
your
previous
retirement.
comment.
Got a hard vote behind you.
that's right.
We need to make a motion on that or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's set by statute, but you have to approve it. It's, I don't know why.
No, I'm talking about Miss Bettis's.
Like we moved.
Yeah.
we were talking.
You know,
I'm on my 16th work hour of today, so.
I
I'm
told
done.
her, she actually asked the question first. I was debating about not telling her that she has to do that to the governor, so it would be effective, but she figured me out, so.
Right.
Is that on this meeting, or is this a
We
vote?
can vote on the
Got
24th.
All right, discuss selling 2.68 acres, county-owned parcel 001000049 on Jotham Down Road. Any discussion on that? It'll be voted on in the next meeting.
I believe there may be a potential buyer that's
Yes,
interested in that property.
yes. Adjacent property owner. I assume that the county acquired this by tax. This was for tax.
Yes.
Oh, this is something else.
Yeah, this has been out for bid.
This has already been out for bid, okay. So you'll have the bids at the meeting, okay.
All right, here's one for you. Discuss the lawn care maintenance for Old Presbyterian Church Cemetery in Danielsville. And just when you thought you were gonna get out early, Miss Teresa.
Oh, is this a big discussion?
Well, it's up to y'all. So here's how this works. This is probably one of the more convoluted things that we have in the county. So the cemetery outside this building is owned by the county. What I would like to see it done would be give it to the city of Danielsville.
I thought the city of Dansville gave it to the county.
No. So turns out, nobody really owned it. The church owned it.
Yeah.
So the last living member passes away, and it just sat there and stale. Anthony absorbed it, into county property. Problem is there's a trust that was set up, and Michael's here tonight, he can fill us in case I missed something. And that trust was set up with the city of Danielsville to maintain this cemetery, but it's county property. So, there was $60,000 that was set aside, and the way it's worded, I tried for 6 years to get it out of the city's control. but it's pretty convoluted the way it's written. I think 2 lawyers looked at it and they threw their hands up, including the guy that wrote it the first time. Because.
Which is not me.
Uh-huh.
Not me.
Yeah, because of the people that was originally tied into the trust have passed away. So currently, the way it's worded is $60,000 must remain at all times. Anything above that $60,000 you can use for lawn maintenance to maintain this cemetery. But now that the land's in the county's name, if we have to agree to cut it, and then whoever we hire to cut it, we have to send the city a bill, and then the city has to cut us a check back, or we have to have an intergovernmental agreement. Pretty convoluted. We don't want it, we don't need it, you can't pick it up, you can't build on it, you can't do anything else with it. So just for, I guess to make everything easier, just to deed that property directly to the city so they can spend their money directly on the cemetery. Now, up until recently, I think Michael and them had reinvested that money to where it did actually grow money there for a while. It actually started accruing money. Where before it was just very minimal, a couple $100 a year, because there just wasn't enough money there to draw any interest off of. I think now it's probably potentially up to about 10,000 total, including all the back money plus now. So they're in a financial state that they can actually maintain. I did get Michael Moore to come over and bring some of the inmates over and cut it 2 weeks ago. There was 12 of them total. It took them 6 hours. Because that particular cemetery is 90% weed. And it's big.
It is.
Yeah, it's probably 3.5 acres, I would expect.
So the city is in agreement with.
Well, they don't want it either, but they're thinking that, hey, we'll take it because it makes it more
I understand.
easier
All right.
to spend
I'm
money.
just saying, when we vote on this, we're not voting into something and all of a sudden we're getting into
They don't want it.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
Trying to give it back type thing.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Well, it's in nobody's interest to own a cemetery.
Well, I understand that. But I know.
They don't want it, we don't want it, but you got the money, so you maintain it.
I know but I just, the thing about it is, I just wanna make sure, too, that it does get taken care of, because number one, it's gonna look real bad, and number two, the cemetery needs to be taken care of over there, because it is old and historic, just like the church is. And, unfortunately, it's gonna cost somebody some money somewhere.
Right.
And so, just being good stewards, I wanna make sure that if we're putting it back on the city, that's where it's gonna be.
Brian, the last living member, which was, you know who she is? Had the house going down Madison Street right here on the left. It was her grandmother that left the money.
Yeah.
The name escapes me, but
So, but y'all have control of the trust, right? I mean, y'all can get the money from it, so.
Yes,
they can get the interest off of it.
They can get the interest off of it.
correct.
All right, so that makes sense,
We actually tried, and this distant relative went to the lawyers and says, look, I want this rewritten so they can take the money and disperse it on the cemetery. They wanted all the headstones stood up, pressure washed, put a nice fence around it. That's how she wanted it done, but it was the way it was written.
They could do it.
It's tied up, and it'll be tied up from now on.
All right.
Does that include the property that the church building is sitting on too?
It does. Now, the city really don't want that. But there's no way, because it's like a 50 by 50 square, it would never be usable for anything, even if the building wasn't there. Problem is for them is they'll have to maintain it in the future. Hopefully they'll have enough money to maintain it. I don't know,
It sounds like a real deal for them then.
No, it's not a good deal for them at all, except for they have the money to run, or we can keep it, and every time we pay to have it cut, then they just have to send us a check. And that's just, wow.
Is there a problem with having inmate labor due?
Yeah.
Yes, so Michael don't have the inmates that he did have. A few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was a problem with, Anthony went out and bought a bunch of mowers and weed eaters for them to do it with, and basically when they ran out or wore out, they wasn't replaced. Not going into the details there, so the sheriff's department says, well, we quit, we're not doing it no more. he did do it for me just because the other day it was knee high.
So the city of Danville plan on doing it in-house with your current staff?
No,
You have to hire it out.
we've got too much to do as it is.
And we looked at that, in making this discussion. I haven't really talked to Michael about it, I've talked to Susan some about it. But because of the shape that cemetery is, and so many of the headstones are leaning, even though some of those at 6 and 7 feet tall, really you want a bonded company in there doing it, because if one of them, if they bump into it, or even just back up into it and it falls over, it'd be a bad deal. So you wanna, somebody has a.
You may want to stop talking before the mayor changes his mind.
Yeah. He already knows this, but I did get some prices up for him, so, I don't know if you've heard that, but I've got some prices up.
What do we have to do to give it to him? That's,
Well, I'm interested in the church building. Well, I mean, I'm concerned and.
You wanna keep it, he'll let you. You just gotta cut it
haul
off,
it
you
wherever
have to
you want.
redeed it or replat it.
I don't want to fall in.
Well, no, I agree with that, I don't think anybody wants that.
Yeah, I still would like for us to revisit that whole concept, what do we do with that, what is our responsibility, and I mean, how are we good stewards of those? Obviously, I'm not interested in letting any of it fall in, which is particularly the Strickland House, that's what's happening there, the Presbyterian Church is in better shape. But, yeah, we have a degree of responsibility there, what is the prudent answer?
I know, and what can we do to help to get some financial aid on
Some grant,
or something, yeah. I agree with that.
So for now, because we're not gonna make a decision quickly on this, like tonight, so I still got to cut the grass in about 4 more days.
1, 2, 3, dot,
You got it?
not it.
Oh.
That's right.
So,
We-
So.
We'll get the grass cut.
what if we can pay to have somebody cut it now?
We'll get the grass cut, don't worry about it.
Well, not with your guys.
No, not with our guys.
But, and then you got the money to pay for it too, then, right?
I mean, we don't have a whole lot, I mean.
But that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
So what he's saying is this board will give you permission to get the grass cut for now.
I
Because you'll be
appreciate it.
cutting the county property. We'll give you permission
Thank
to
you.
cut the county property.
No, yeah, we'll get it cut
Okay.
while we work all this out.
Yeah, and, I think it's a
Thank
good
you.
proposal for us and the city to try to figure out if we can get somebody else to help with that church building.
Yeah, we've got some ideas there,
Okay.
and we'd be happy to share them with you.
Yeah, I think we need to have all that together. That's good. Yeah, very good. I appreciate your.
So you wanna put it back on a work session, Michael, maybe for next month?
Yeah, we can, because there's been talk at the city that we could, in other places, what they've done is establish a cemetery caretaker committee, and they go and they research the families that are buried there, and you never know, some of them may have moved away, but they know who's there, and they've got money, and they're willing to put more in the pot, or they know, yeah, that was the church my great-grandmother went to, I'd love to help out with that,
That's a
so.
great
Is
idea.
there any
At least get some
Confederate
donations,
soldiers in it?
whatever.
Are there any Confederate soldiers?
Yes, I believe so. I've
Get
gone
the
there.
Sons of the Confederacy back in it.
There you go. Well, also, if the church is old enough, you could look into grants from,
Historical.
yes, thank you, historical
June 7th or July 12th?
is what,
When do we, what, you wanna give it a month or give it 2 months for deliberations?
we've got a work session at the last Monday of this month.
That's your work session?
That's our work session.
Why don't y'all have that so we'll convene, that's in May. Okay, we can talk about it in June, the June work session. I wanna give y'all first and you can come to us for second. What you got, Chris?
If you can prove that there was anybody that was a soldier from the Confederate Army and that the Sons of the Confederacy will set aside money to help maintain it so long as one person earned a Confederate Bronze Star,
Well, undoubtedly they are, because I saw like 5 flags out there the other
then they will assign money to help maintain it.
day. Okay. All right, thank you. Number 18 has been removed. discuss contracting with Northeast Georgia Regional Commission to facilitate the development of joint comprehensive plan. We definitely need this. I don't think anybody deny that.
That's a big deal on my radar. You feel confident that all the cities gonna want to participate with.
We'll have to get it, have we got an email out to all them, or, I wonder if Anna did, because she sent it to us. Michael, have y'all heard in Danielsville about a comprehensive plan?
For,
It's just,
The comprehensive plan.
it's a yearly deal?
oh,
Can I go over that? Okay.
A couple of the cities is due anyway, or very close.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the cohesive plan.
I would love to hear you say I have time to do that. I mean, this, I know this is what your wheelhouse is, and this is where you're good at. And I think you could really help Anna and guide Anna into putting this together, but it's definitely needed. I mean, everything we're gonna do for the next 10 years is gonna be based off a good comprehensive plan, not the generic ones we've been going with. Because you know how that goes.
I have some ideas, I'd be glad to participate in this. I don't want it to be it won't be my show.
You don't want to be the primary contact?
Yeah,
That's correct.
Huh?
And
I think that's one of the lines you have to fill out, primary contact, right?
Yeah.
Terry Chandler.
Primary contact the honorable commissioner.
Thank
Terry
So are you
Chandler.
saying you would be?
you. I think I hear a train coming.
No, I think from the commission.
That's what he said, I heard him say
Okay.
that.
All right.
I think that's what he meant.
So, also under that, I'd like to have, as part of the comp plan, discussion, and I think it would be appropriate with Northeast Georgia, at least RDC and whatnot, any of the ordinances that we think may need to be updated or included, suggested if they could do a review of that. And there's my legal tie-in for this. Whether it's appropriate now or under urgent matters, Mr. Chairman, I will make it an urgent matter to me. But
I'm good with it.
we all know that we've completed the sound study for the community noise impact in the Cobber area. The board empowered me, for lack of a better word, to lead that sound study effort and distribute a final report. And as of tonight, no action is required, and it's not a vote, but just to enter in the record, that I could probably give you a little arguably with my language, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Whereas the Madison County Board of Commissioners contracted with Arpeggio Acoustic Consulting LLC to conduct a sound study regarding the noise level in the Cobber, Georgia area with specific concern to noise output from the Madison GRP plant. Received the final report dated March 23rd of this year, titled Sound Study for Community Noise Impact and Operations at the Madison GRP Biomass Power Plant. And whereas Madison County Board of Commissioners empowered District 5 Commissioner Derek Officer to lead the sound study effort, distribute the final report to all participants in the study area, allowing time for questions and comments. I hereby submit on the March 23rd, 2021 study to the Board of Commissioners has been completed, and recommend the county to begin efforts to develop a noise ordinance for future consideration. And I'll give that to Ms. Rhonda as a formal copy.
Was that part where you said I'm gonna try to outlaw your hand?
Well, I had to have a
That
time
was
to
good.
the agenda, yeah. I had to have some sort of.
I don't know why he thinks this is a big deal. We're only lawyers because we can't do math.
I started out math this
Oh, I know somebody that will share that. She might take exception to that.
I gotta be honest with myself.
My son's struggling with that.
But I appreciate the board's effort in allowing that to move forward, and I know that it means a lot to a lot of the community out that way. And again, you can read the report for yourself, and, you know, I'm not gonna infer anything out of it except that I think we could do some tidying up on some time.
Okay.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
no problem.
Thank you,
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, you done a good job. Any other urgent matters? Executive session discuss real estate acquisition, personal matters, or potential litigations.
I don't have anything.
Motion to adjourn.
So,
But,